The unsent letter. Tonight, it's raining again. I sit alone in a quiet room by the slightly open window, letting the cool night air flow in. The earthy scent of rain mixes with the faint aroma of hot tea, creating a sense of tranquility yet stirring up old memories. I reach for a small wooden box on the bookshelf, one that I haven't opened in a long time. Inside are fragments of my youth, a few faded photographs, an old movie ticket, and a letter neatly folded. A letter that was never sent. I pick it up, my fingers brushing over the aged paper. Gently, I unfold it, and the ink-written words appear before my eyes, as if I had just written them yesterday. My love, it's raining again today. I'm sitting in our favorite cafe, at the table by the window that you always loved. The chair across from me is empty, yet I can almost see you sitting there, resting your chin on your hand, gazing out at the street with those bright, dreamy eyes. Do you remember? The first time we met was also on a rainy day like this. You were standing under the eaves, clutching your small canvas bag, your eyes searching for someone who might help you. The wind had stolen your blue umbrella, leaving it lying helplessly in a puddle. Without thinking, I walked up to you and handed you mine, forgetting that I didn't have a raincoat myself. That day, we stood together under the awning, talking like old friends. I still remember your laughter, clear and bright, like raindrops falling from the roof onto the ground. And perhaps, from that moment on, I knew my heart no longer belonged to me. I remember so vividly the first time we held hands. It wasn't during some grand, romantic moment, just a quiet afternoon as we strolled through the park. You shivered slightly from the cold, and without hesitation, I reached out and took your hand. You didn't pull away. Instead, you gently squeezed my fingers, as if silently acknowledging the feelings we both shared. There were so many things I wanted to tell you, but I never had the courage to say them out loud. I always thought there would be a better time, a more perfect moment to confess that I loved you. But life doesn't always wait for us to be ready. And then, the day came, the day you told me you had to leave. I remember the moment you stood before me, your eyes filled with both sadness and determination. You spoke of a faraway city, of dreams you needed to chase, and how some things in life cannot be held onto, no matter how much we wish they could. I smiled, gently wished you the best, but inside, my heart felt like it was shattering. That night, I sat down and wrote this letter. I wanted to tell you that I loved you, that I had always loved you since the very beginning, that I was willing to wait for you to return. But when I finished writing, I hesitated. I was afraid that if you read it, you would feel guilty. I was afraid that my feelings would become a burden on your journey. So, I folded the letter, placed it in this box, and let you go. Now, after all these years, I hold this letter in my hands once again. Every word remains intact, yet the person I wrote it for is now so far away. Do you ever think of me? On rainy days like this, do you ever find yourself reminiscing about the past? I smile to myself, gently folding the letter and placing it back in the box. There's no more regret, no more sorrow. Perhaps some love stories do not need a perfect ending. Sometimes it is enough to know that, at one point in our lives, we loved someone with all our hearts, that we were once truly happy, even if only for a fleeting moment. The house on Maple Street. Golden autumn leaves swirl in the crisp afternoon air. A man in his late 60s, dressed in a wool coat, stands on the sidewalk, gazing at a familiar house. His hands tremble slightly as he grips the old leather strap of his bag. 35 years. That's how long it's been since I last stood here. Yet, nothing seems to have changed, and yet, everything has. Ethan Walker, 68, takes a slow breath, his eyes tracing the white picket fence, the wooden porch swing, and the large bay window where his mother used to sit. The house, once his childhood home, now belongs to another family. A tricycle leans against the steps, and laughter drifts from the backyard. The sight brings a lump to his throat. Young Ethan, around 10 years old, is in the front yard, tossing a baseball with his father. The sun casts long shadows as they laugh, the ball thudding into their gloves. Young Ethan, laughing. One more throw, Dad. Father, chuckling. All right, champ. But this is the last one. Your mother's waiting with dinner. The dining room is bathed in warm light. A younger version of Ethan, his parents, and his little sister are gathered around a wooden table. The smell of home-cooked stew fills the air. Mother, smiling. Now, before we eat, tell me, what was the best part of your day? Young Ethan, grinning. Dad and I almost broke the neighbor's window with a home run. Laughter fills the room. His father shakes his head, while his sister giggles. The love in their voices, the flickering candlelight, and the clinking of spoons create a warm, unbreakable bond. The memory shifts to a darker scene, a thunderstorm. Lightning flashes outside, illuminating the living room where young Ethan clutches his blanket, eyes wide. Thunder rumbles, shaking the walls. Suddenly, footsteps approach. Mother, softly. Come here, sweetheart. She sits beside him, wrapping him in her arms. The warmth of her embrace, the rhythmic sound of her heartbeat, and the scent of lavender from her sweater, all of it etches into his soul. Mother, whispering. Storms pass, my love. but we'll always have this home, and we'll always have each other. Back in the present, Ethan wipes a tear from his cheek. The laughter of the new family echoes from the backyard. He watches a young father lift his daughter into the air, just as his father once did. The sight is both beautiful and painful, proof that time moves on, even when the heart longs to stay in the past. This house is no longer mine, but the memories will always be. They live in the echoes of laughter, in the whispers of the walls, and in the warmth of the autumn sun. Ethan hesitates, his feet rooted to the pavement. For a moment, he considers knocking on the door, telling the family who he is, sharing the stories of what this house once meant. But instead, he simply smiles, a bittersweet, knowing smile, and steps away. Some memories are meant to be carried in the heart, not revisited in the present. He turns away, taking one last glance at the house before walking back down Maple Street. As he leaves, a single golden leaf drifts onto the porch, a quiet reminder of time's gentle touch. Home is not just a place, it's the people we love and the memories we hold. No matter how far we go, our childhood remains a part of us. Some places may change, but the love within them lasts forever. That autumn, the old man sat on an old wooden chair beneath the crimson maple tree, his gaze lost in the distant past. His granddaughter sat beside him, her eyes sparkling with curiosity as she listened to his slow, gentle voice. The golden afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground, as if nature itself was listening to his tale. That year, when I was still a young man, I met your grandmother. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, with golden leaves blanketing the village road. The air carried the gentle fragrance of earth and the changing season. The first time I saw her, she was sitting on the front steps of her house, holding a book in her hands, her hair swaying softly in the breeze. The golden sunlight bathed her face, and I found myself unable to look away. She was like a vision, like something out of a dream. The granddaughter leaned her head on his shoulder, listening attentively, captivated by his words. That night, the moon was full and bright, and the wind whispered through the trees like a soft melody. I had spent the entire day thinking about her, about the way she smiled, the way her voice carried through the air like a song. And so, I gathered all my courage to approach her, my heart pounding like a boy experiencing love for the first time. I found her standing by the lake, watching the reflection of the moon shimmer upon the water. When she turned to look at me and smiled, I knew my heart belonged to her forever. For the first time, I held her hand, small, soft, and warm. In that moment, I knew I would never forget the feeling. His story continued with their meetings beneath the maple tree, the evenings spent watching the sunset together, the hurried letters exchanged during times apart, and the challenges their love had to endure. There were moments when hardships threatened to tear them apart, times of uncertainty, of distance, of misunderstandings. And yet, their sincerity and unwavering devotion kept them together. Your grandmother taught me the true meaning of love, to place another's happiness above my own. Even when life was tough, she stood by my side, building a family with me, raising our children, and caring for me until the very end. She was the greatest gift life ever gave me. Every time I was lost, she was my guiding light. The old man's voice trembled slightly as he spoke those last words. His granddaughter tightened her grip around his wrinkled hands, her eyes filled with admiration and emotion. She could feel the immense love her grandfather had for her grandmother, a love that transcended time and would never fade. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves, wrapping them both in a blanket of nostalgia. The old man looked up at the sky, his eyes reflecting both sorrow and deep gratitude. That autumn, and all the autumns that followed, remained the most beautiful memory in my heart, he whispered. And every time I see the golden leaves dance in the wind, I feel as if she is still here with me. The granddaughter rested her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes, imagining the love story he had painted with his words. She understood then that some loves never truly fade, they live on, in the hearts of those who remember, in the seasons that return, and in the whispers of the wind that carry their echoes through time. The Christmas Tree Farm Promise.
A Christmas tree farm, late afternoon. Snow gently falls, covering the landscape in white. The golden glow of the setting sun illuminates the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. Young Mike, 18, and Liz, 16, walk hand in hand, bundled up in scarves and mittens. Their laughter echoes through the crisp winter air as they search for the perfect Christmas tree. Liz, excited, scanning the rows of evergreens. We need the biggest, most beautiful tree here, Mike. Something magical. Mike, grinning, teasing. If you pick a tree, Liz, it'll be magical no matter what. But if you want the biggest one, we need to make a deal. Liz, raising an eyebrow, intrigued. A deal? Mike, nodding, serious but playful. Every Christmas, no matter where life takes us, we meet here. Same farm, same promise. Liz hesitates for a moment, then smiles, stretching out her pinky finger. Liz, softly, sincere. Every Christmas. No matter what. They lock pinkies, sealing the promise, their laughter lingering in the cold air. A snowy road winds through the countryside. Mike, now 65, drives alone, his hands gripping the wheel as he approaches the familiar Christmas tree farm. The radio plays an old Christmas tune, one that stirs something deep within him. As he pulls into the farm's entrance, the sight before him takes his breath away. It looks almost exactly as it did 50 years ago. Mike steps out of the car. The cold air bites his skin, but he barely notices. He walks through the rows of trees, his fingers brushing against the pine needles, lost in thought. Mike, murmuring to himself, nostalgic yet uncertain. What am I even doing here? It's just a silly promise. No one remembers things like that after 50 years. Just as he's about to turn back, a soft, familiar voice calls out behind him. Liz, gently, with quiet disbelief. Mike, is that you? Mike freezes. Slowly, he turns. Standing a few feet away, Liz is wrapped in a long wool coat, snowflakes settling in her hair. Time has changed them, but there's something in her eyes, the same warmth, the same kindness. A moment of silence lingers, the years melting away between them. Mike, softly, awed. Liz, you remembered? Liz, nodding, voice filled with emotion. Every year. I never stopped coming back. Just in case. They share a quiet, emotional smile. The past and present blend into one. They stroll through the farm, wrapped in nostalgia, their breath visible in the cold air. They talk, their voices a mixture of joy and sorrow. Mike, gazing at the trees, sighing. I left town after college. Life got in the way, jobs, responsibilities. I kept telling myself I'd come back, but I never did. And then I figured you'd forgotten me. Liz, softly, looking down. I thought about you every Christmas. I got married, had a good life. My husband, he was a wonderful man. But after he passed, I found myself coming back here. It was like this place held something unfinished. Mike nods, understanding. He looks at her, really seeing her. Mike, gently. And now that I'm here, do you think it's too late? Liz stops, turning to face him. Her eyes search his, filled with years of unspoken words. Liz, smiling, hopeful. It's never too late, Mike. Not for something like this. He reaches for her hand. She lets him. Mike and Liz stand before the trees, just as they did all those years ago. The moment feels surreal, yet profoundly right. Mike, grinning, playfully. So, what do you say? Biggest tree in the lot? Liz, laughing, eyes twinkling. Of course. A deal's a deal. They pick out a tree together, just like before. Mike lifts it onto his truck, brushing the snow off his coat. As he turns, he finds Liz watching him, a soft expression on her face. Mike, softly, with quiet hope. Liz, do you think fate brought us back here? Liz, reaching for his hand, squeezing it gently. Maybe. Or maybe we just kept our promise. Snow falls around them, shimmering in the glow of the Christmas lights. They stand together, side by side, two souls finding their way back to each other after decades apart. As they drive away, the Christmas tree secured in the back, the farm disappears into the snowy distance, but the promise remains fulfilled at last.
The unfinished apology. The autumn air was crisp as James stepped onto the wooden porch of his childhood home in a small town in Montana. The leaves crunched beneath his boots, and the golden hues of the trees stretched across the horizon, painting a picture of nostalgia. He hadn't been back in nearly 15 years, but everything still felt hauntingly familiar. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. His heart pounded against his rib cage. This wasn't just a visit. It was unfinished business. The door creaked open, revealing a man who had aged, but whose face still carried remnants of the boy James had once called his best friend. "Connor," James said, his voice steady but heavy. "James." Connor's voice was barely above a whisper. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. For a moment, neither spoke. The weight of years, of unspoken words, of a broken friendship, hung between them like an invisible wall. "Can we talk?" James finally asked. Connor hesitated, but then stepped aside. "Come in." 15 years earlier, James and Connor had been inseparable, the kind of best friends who knew each other's secrets before they were even spoken. They spent their childhood riding bikes through the fields, fishing by the creek, and dreaming of the day they'd leave their small town behind. But there was one thing James loved more than anything else: his cat, Whiskey. Whiskey wasn't just a pet. He was family. James had rescued the tiny orange kitten from the cold one winter when he was 8, and from that moment, the two were inseparable. The cat would curl up in his lap during thunderstorms, follow him to the mailbox every morning, and sleep at the foot of his bed every night. But Connor never liked Whiskey. At first, it was harmless teasing. "Why do you love that cat so much?" "It's just an animal," he'd say, rolling his eyes whenever James talked about him. But underneath, something darker was growing: jealousy. Connor had always been the center of attention between the two of them, but suddenly, James seemed to care more about a cat than their adventures. One afternoon, everything changed. James had gone into town to run an errand for his mother, leaving Whiskey in their usual spot by the creek. When he returned, the cat was gone. At first, he thought Whiskey had wandered off, but as the hours passed, panic set in. He searched the woods, called his name, even knocked on neighbors' doors, but there was no sign of him. Then, As the sun began to set, he saw Connor standing by the bridge, alone. Something in his friend's eyes sent a chill down his spine. "Connor, where's whiskey?" The silence was deafening. Then, in the faintest whisper, Connor said, "I didn't mean to." James's stomach dropped. He didn't even need to hear the rest. The truth came out in jagged, broken sentences. Connor had been frustrated, envious of the attention James gave to whiskey. In a moment of anger, he had thrown a rock at the cat to scare him away, but it had struck too hard. Whiskey had tumbled into the creek, disappearing beneath the water. Connor had waited, hoping he'd surface. But he never did. James didn't speak. He couldn't. He just turned and walked away. And that was the last time they ever spoke. Present day. Connor poured 2 cups of coffee, his hands trembling slightly as he handed one to James. They sat in the dimly lit kitchen, the clock ticking loudly in the silence. "I've waited years for this," Connor finally said. "To tell you how sorry I am." James stared at the dark liquid in his cup. "Why now?" "Because it's haunted me every single day. And because you deserve to hear it." James let out a slow breath. He had spent years carrying his grief, his anger, his unanswered questions. There were nights he lay awake, wondering if Connor had ever felt remorse, if he had ever thought about the pain he had caused. And now he had his answer. "Whiskey was my best friend," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "Losing him broke something in me. But losing you, that broke something even deeper." Connor swallowed hard. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." James closed his eyes for a long moment. Forgiveness. It wasn't simple. It wasn't instant. But as he looked at the man in front of him, the same boy who had once been his best friend, he realized that holding on to hatred had only kept him trapped in the past. "I don't know if I can ever forget what happened," James admitted. "But I don't want to carry this anymore." Connor's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "So, does that mean?" James nodded. "It means we start from here. But it's going to take time." For the first time in 15 years, Connor smiled. It was a small, broken smile, but it was real. Outside, the autumn wind howled through the trees, carrying away the ghosts of the past. And for the first time in a long time, James felt lighter. The dream of returning to youth.
The soft sound of raindrops tapping against the window blends with the gentle melody of an old piano tune. In a small room, the warm glow of a yellow lamp casts soft shadows on the walls adorned with faded photographs. Mr. Thomas, a man in his 70s, sits quietly by the window. On his lap rests a worn-out photo album, its pages yellowed with time. He flips through the pages, his gaze stopping at an old photograph. In the picture, a young man stands beneath an oak tree next to a girl with a radiant smile. Memories flood in like waves, pulling him back to the brightest days of his life. When old age arrives, we learn to accept that some memories will forever remain in the past. But on certain nights, dreams unlock a door, taking us back to days long gone, to the time when our hearts still burned with passion. Thomas is no longer an old man. He is now a young man again, standing on a bustling street from the 1970s. The air carries the scent of freshly baked bread from a small corner bakery, and the sound of a vinyl record playing drifts from a nearby shop. Thomas looks around, feeling both familiar and bewildered. And then he sees her, Emily. She stands under the old oak tree, her white dress swaying gently in the breeze. Her eyes sparkle as they meet his gaze. Thomas, smiling, stepping closer. You always know how to make everything more beautiful. Emily, playfully laughing. Do you remember this place? Thomas nods. This was where they first met when they were barely in their 20s. Back then, Emily was a lively, cheerful girl, and he was a literature-loving student. On that fateful day, a sudden rainstorm forced them to seek shelter under this very tree. It was in that moment, without words, that they fell in love. Emily laughing as Thomas teases her, the two sitting by the lake, reading poetry to each other, then dancing under the moonlight at a summer festival. Everything is vibrant, filled with life. One night, Thomas takes Emily to a hilltop overlooking the city. She leans on his shoulder, her eyes shimmering like the stars above. Emily, whispering, Thomas, do you believe that some loves last forever? Thomas, if it's our love, then yes. She chuckles, but there's a distant look in her eyes. He doesn't know that very night, Emily is keeping a heartbreaking secret. One autumn afternoon, as golden leaves cover the path they often walked, Emily suddenly speaks. I have to leave for a while. Thomas, confused. Where? For how long? She remains silent. The wind sweeps up a few fallen leaves, sending a chill through his heart. And then, without another word, she leaves. Thomas searches for her everywhere. The letters he sends receive no reply. Time passes, and Emily becomes a beautiful but painful memory in his heart. Suddenly, the dream shifts. Thomas is old again, but he is still standing on that familiar street. And there she is, Emily, looking just as she did in her youth, untouched by time. Thomas, his voice trembling, stepping closer. Emily, is it really you? She smiles, but sadness lingers in her eyes. Emily, I never truly left, Thomas. I've always been here. A gust of wind blows away the silk scarf around her neck, and in that instant, everything begins to fade. The dream dissolves. Mr. Thomas awakens with a jolt. The room is still bathed in silver moonlight. He looks down at the photo album on his lap and turns to the last page. There, tucked away, is a faded letter. His trembling hands unfold it, and as he reads, his eyes fill with tears. Asterisk, my dearest Thomas. I'm sorry for leaving without a word. I never wanted to break your heart. But I was diagnosed with an illness that couldn't be cured. I didn't want you to watch me fade away, to suffer because of me. Please, live well. Remember, no matter where I am, I will always love you. Forever yours, Emily. Asterisk. A single tear falls onto the fragile paper. Thomas closes his eyes, and in the quiet of the night, he whispers, I never stopped loving you either, Emily. Outside the window, the moonlight gently illuminates the room like a tender touch from the woman he loved. Some loves never fade, they simply wait in a quiet corner of the heart, longing to be found again, even if only in dreams.